Hi, I'm Bruce Rector with the Rector Group, and I'm here today to talk with you about 3 steps to a great year. And who wouldn't want a great year? And this is a good time to start planning for that great year. It's early in the year, and really any time you can do this, but early in the year is sometimes nice. And the idea here is these are 3 steps that you sort of can take at a high level and then drive down into your company so that you've got certain actions that folks in the company can take to achieve the goals that management determines that need to happen. So what are those 3 steps? Well, understand where you are, envision your year-end game, not just your end game, but really your year-end game. This is not long-term, this is intermediate term. And then connect the dots. Again, understand where you are, envision your year-end game, and connect the dots. Now that sounds a little like mom and apple pie, but bear with me here, and I think you'll be able to understand that this is something that, while simple, can create some very powerful action steps for you. So let's talk about understand your company. I'd be willing to bet that most people listening to this know exactly those levers, those parameters that drive revenue, whether it's more effective internet marketing, hiring more salespeople, outbound cold calling on the telephone, maybe out knocking on doors. Whatever your company is, you've got a certain set of drivers that drive your revenue. And the trick here is to identify those so you know which lever to pull to make the revenue happen the way you want it to happen. Or it might be you might know very well how to grow the revenue, but maybe you need to be thinking about the infrastructure to deliver your good or service. It's not going to do any good, obviously, to sell a bunch of things that you then subsequently can't deliver. And these are often captured in some metrics that are called key performance indicators, or KPIs. And I'm willing to bet you can name half a dozen off the top of your head that you kind of keep a weather eye out for. Maybe you already have a formal way of tracking them to ensure you're going the right way. But if you don't, then you need to sit down and figure out what those half a dozen things are, because they're going to be how you'll be able to follow your company's performance as it goes to the next level. So understand where you are. Now envision your year-end game. What does that mean? It means you're here right now and you want to be here at the end of the year. How do you raise your game, elevate your game to that level? Well, it might have to do with growing your revenue. We've just talked about that. And then drilling down, it might mean I know, or you know, that every salesperson you hire generates $500,000 worth of sales, and therefore you might need to hire a couple of more salespeople to get there. Or you might need to make an extra 200 phone calls, outbound cold calls a week, or whatever it is that drives your revenue. You can take that and understand that that's what you got to do to hit your year-end your year-end game, that you want to raise your rev to another $5 million, or add another 50 customers and raise your revenue $2 million, whatever it may be. But you've envisioned the end game, or you've got a cash flow target of so many millions in free cash flow, whatever it may be. So you define that end point. So now you've got a starting point and you've got an end point. So you've got to connect the dots. And that means setting intermediate goals in between to bridge that gap from where you are to where you're going to be at your year end of this year. And what I would suggest is that you set intermediate goals on a quarterly basis. Okay, so if you're going to be here when you start, here when you end, you need to figure out where you're going to be 3 months in, and then another 3 months in, another 3 months in, and then year end. Once you do that, you can begin thinking about what has to happen during those quarters. You have to hire a salesperson, you have to put in more phones, you've got to, expand your warehouse, lease more trucks, whatever it may be. You take those sort of intermediate goals and then you begin attaching accountabilities to them. There's certain steps that have to happen, by whom and by when. You meet monthly and you follow up and see how everybody's doing. Certain people have certain goals. by whom, and by when. And every month, you see how you're doing toward that quarterly goal, because you've got to get to that quarterly goal to get to your year-end goal. Now, again, I know this sounds like mom and apple pie. It's easy to talk about. It can be tricky to execute. But if management has appropriate focus, if you do these three things, if you understand where you are, envision your year-end game, and then connect the dots, you'll be well on your way to having a great year this year. Thank you very much.